evening, Bahamas. It is great to have you all here with me tonight. Just say a prayer. Father, we thank you so much once again for allowing us to have the opportunity to grow, for guiding us and showing us the way. We ask you, Lord, to use each and every one of us as you choose to and as you know is best for each and every one of us. Father, we ask that you would guide us to our purpose, that we may fulfill it. We ask, Lord, that you would show us the way because sometimes we don't know and sometimes we get lost. Father, we ask that you would continue to provide for each and every Bahamian right now, especially in this COVID pandemic. I ask you, Lord, that you would show each person, whether they are persons on this live or any other Bahamian, Father, I ask you to show them ways that they can invest, ways that they can grow, ways that they can become better than they ever thought possible. Father, I ask you to just be here for each and every one of us because, God, without you, we would be completely lost. Thank you for everything that you are doing in each of our lives. And use us tonight, use me tonight, to give a lesson that will actually help every person on this live to invest and to trade better. We ask you this, Lord Jesus, and we pray, amen. So once again, welcome everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. Tonight, once again, we are going to be getting into first of all, into which markets we would be looking at trading. So I do recommend that each of you identify 3 markets that you are good with. So the only way to do that is, again, to go into that demo account and to practice. So if you have not as yet opened up an account with Smart Trader, I will guide you through that process tonight. Please do so. If you use TradingView, if you use MetaTrader 4, whichever trading platform that you prefer, the important thing is that you're trading. So practice is what makes perfect. Practice is what makes you a master. And I don't know if you remember a couple of lessons ago, it was discovered that it takes 21 days to actually master a trade. So not necessarily Forex, not necessarily investing, but just anything that you are doing inside of your life. It takes at least 21 days to master that skill. So guys, let's do this. And let's do this together because we are here to help each other. If you are not yet a part of the Forex group on WhatsApp and you want to be, please do send a message inside of the comments so that I could take a look and add you as well. If not, then PC me, private chat me on Facebook so I could add you, or you can message me on WhatsApp. My number is 437-4326. Once again, please take this opportunity to share. So I don't know if you guys have been seeing what has been happening internationally, but the US dollar took a major hit and it seems like it started to come back. So again, all of that movement, whether a currency increases in value or decreases in value, as a currency trader, you can actually earn either way. You just sell when the market is going down and buy when the market is going up. And either way, you are able to make a profit. Number one, you need to understand that as a retail trader, your movements in the market is not going to cause the market to go up or down. There are major movers in this market, and to learn more about that, please go to the very first video. So you could see this is part 6 of the lessons that we have had thus far. We had a bit of a refresher about 2 weeks ago. So from today onward, every Sunday at 8 p.m., we will be hosting the Forex lessons. And that means consistently. So the good news is Lincoln will be hosting his live, and the Coalition of Independents at Large will be hosting lives on Tuesdays. So Sundays are all ours. We get to take a look at the market from it opens and look at some trades that we could make. We'll even be looking at making trades live on these sessions. So please, guys, do make sure that you sign up for smarttrader.com. So before we get into the lesson, that's what we're going to get to. All right. Okay, so as you could see, I am currently on smarttrader.com. And if you go to join for free, whenever you go to smarttrader.com and you go to charts, so I'll guide you guys from going to smarttrader.com. Once you're here, there's two ways that you can sign up. You can either click on the icon over here, and you can see I'm currently signed in, so I'll log out to walk you guys through the process. Or you could just click on the charts and go from there. So we're going to choose Get Started. And then you can see it's a very simple form. You just put in your first name and last name, your email, and then create a password and your phone number. Agree to the terms and conditions. Please do take a moment to read them. I never recommend agreeing to terms and conditions or anything for that matter without reading it. Always read your contracts before you sign them. And that will empower you, so you don't have people trying to take advantage of you. So once you're finished with that, create the account and you would be able to easily log in. Now, of course, this is sensitive information, so just give me a moment, guys, to sign back in. And once again, please take this opportunity to share the live. We need to have you guys benefiting from this and anyone else that you know. So what I am showing you, let's see. What I'm showing you tonight is essentially what I learned when I was at one of the world's most accredited trading institutions called Market Traders Institute. So feel free to learn more about them and see what they're all about. Okay. So once you sign in, just go to the charts and we'll get started. Okay, so once again, tonight is about trend lines. So first and foremost, since we're talking about trend lines, what is a trend? A trend is really when the market moves in an overall upward or downward direction. It allows for you to tell whether the market is moving up so you could buy or down so that you could sell. But the market actually moves in what we call waves. Just like the ocean, it has to pull back in order to move forward. So that pullback is what we call a retracement, and that moving forward or pushing forward is what we call an extension. So the market moves in waves called highs and lows. These highs and lows create a trend when they move in an overall upward or downward direction. When the market starts to make smaller waves, it creates an overall sideways movement. It is called consolidation. So if you notice that those waves are just moving sideways instead of up or down, that is consolidation. All right, so what is a high? A high forms in what looks like a mountain peak or an upward pointing arrow. The high is the candle that is higher than the two candles on the left and the two candles on the right. All right, so this is what a high actually looks like. You can see the red candle is actually forming a high because it's higher than, once again, the two candles on the left and the two candles on the right. If you're not sure what candles are, feel free to go back to the first lesson so you could learn more about it. As well as you should be able to identify the one called Japanese candlesticks. Just click on the channel name and you'd be able to identify it. So what is a low? A low forms in what looks like valleys or a V. The low is the candle that is lower than the two candles on the left and the two candles on the right. So this is what a low looks like. As you can see, the red candle with a very long tail to the bottom, it's lower than the two candles on the left and the two candles on the right. So this is what a low looks like. It's important to know your lows and your highs because this is what you're going to be paying attention to as you draw your trend lines. So what is an uptrend? When the market creates higher highs and higher lows, it is forming an uptrend. So just to give you an idea of what that looks like, this is an uptrend. You could see where the first high began, and then after that it pulled back so that it could move forward. And as it moved forward, you could see it went up higher. It pulled back again, just a little bit, moved forward, it went up higher. So that's how an uptrend works. It makes a tiny movement downward and then a bigger movement upward. So it makes higher highs and higher lows. So a downtrend is the exact opposite. It makes lower lows and lower highs. So just like with the uptrend, it's going to pull back in order to move forward. So you could see it's coming down. It makes the first low, then it pulls back, goes up, and then moves forward, goes further down. So it keeps on coming back just a little and then moving forward much further down. So in order for it to move further down, it has to pull back into a retracement. So that being said, let's take a look at how to draw trend lines. Firstly, what is a trend line? A trend line is a tool that is used to show you where the market has a habit of changing its price. So essentially where it goes up or where it goes down. Trend lines used in downtrends are called down trend lines. Trend lines used in uptrends are called uptrend lines. So that should be pretty easy to remember. So what is a downtrend line? A downtrend line is a line that is drawn at the top, so you can identify whether it's a downtrend line by whether you are putting the line to the top of the candles or to the bottom of the candles. If it's to the top, then it's a downtrend line. When the candles come too close to the line, 80% of the time, the candles move downwards, making lower lows and lower highs. So this is just an idea of what it looks like. Once again, 80% of the times that the candles come close to the trend line, they change direction or bounce. You can say they go down. So because this is a downtrend line, it's drawn to the top of the candles. You could see it starts at what is called the highest high, and then it connects to the next high that comes before the lowest low. I know that sounds a bit confusing, but once we get to actually drawing the trend lines, you'll be able to understand exactly what I just said. What is an uptrend line? An uptrend line, like I said, it's drawn at the bottom of the candles. So when the candles come close to the uptrend line, so they pull back, come down a little, come close to that uptrend line, and then move further forward to go up. So it continues making higher highs and higher lows. So once again, here's another example. 80% of the time, the candles come close to the trend line and then they change direction. So it starts to come down and then just a little, it moves forward to make a higher high, comes down a little bit, moves forward, makes a higher high, and then again comes back down close to that line, moves forward, makes another high. So what you would be paying attention to is when it gets close to that line, so that you could be looking at where to set your trades. All right, so here we go, types of trend lines. There are 4 main types of trend lines. You have long-term trend lines, outer trend lines, inner trend lines, and counter trend lines. So you may have heard of long-term, outer, and inner before, but there are some persons that may not be familiar with counter trend lines if this is your, if you are familiar with trading. So before I go any further, I just want to take a moment to say good night, Sal Smith. Good night. I see your name as Observation Complete. Thank you both for joining us tonight. Feel free to let us know where you're watching from, and if you are trading, once again, if you have not signed up with Smart Traders yet, please do so that from tonight onward, you can practice your trading. If you are not in the WhatsApp group as yet, please send me a personal message or send a message to the Facebook page or the YouTube page. I will take a look at it and add you as soon as possible. So from essentially this week onward, I will be personally trading with the persons inside of that group. And we are going to be setting our PIP goals, which we will identify at the end of tonight. All right, so that being said, let's take a look at how we actually draw these trend lines. So the long-term trend line, it is the trend line that actually lasts the longest without being broken. So it is usually drawn on a larger time frame, and it establishes the strongest level of support or resistance. If you are not familiar with support or resistance, don't worry. That is what we are going to be talking about next week. So next week, Sunday at 8 p.m., make sure you tune on so you could learn more about support and resistance and how it works, why it causes the market to move up or why it causes the market to move down. All right, long-term trend line. So this is what it looks like. This example is shown to you from a yearly time frame, or, well, it actually shows you from the monthly time frame based on how many years that this market was open. So you can see when the market first opened, each candle here actually represents 1 month worth of movement in the market. So it's really simple how to draw these lines, and we are going to be doing that tonight. I am a practical teacher, so I really don't like COVID because it means that you can't be face-to-face, but there are ways to work around it. I can actually invite any of you online to join and show an example, but this is where those that WhatsApp group comes into play, because then we could go on Zoom and we could practice even at night whenever everyone is off, and I could take a look at your screen based on you sharing your screen on Zoom and show you how to do it. So once again, if you're not in that WhatsApp group, please send me a message so that I could add you. So this time, this trend line is a trend line that, because for so many years it was being followed, you know that this is not a trend line that is going to be broken very easily. As you could see, every time the candles got close to that line, it what we call resisted. So this is where the market was not willing to go above. So that's what resistance is. It's a level that the market often tends to turn around and go back down. So it's not willing to go above that. So that's really what a trend line is. It's like a diagonal version of resistance. All right, so the outer trend line. The outer trend line shows further development of the trend. So basically, as the trend moves faster, because every day you have people that are buying things out of different countries, you have news that's coming out, you have banks that are buying and selling their currency. A lot of movement is happening inside of the market every day. $5.3 trillion as of 2020 is traded in this market. So, and 6 trillion if you include Bitcoin. So that being said, because of that, that is going to cause the market to eventually start moving faster as everything is being traded and people are buying and selling. So all of that is happening in real time. It is usually drawn on a time frame that is shorter than the one you use to draw the long-term time frame on. So for example, the 1 month time frame was used for a long-term trend line, but it's also longer than the short-term trend line. So it's going to be on maybe a daily time frame or a 4-hour time frame, just based on what kind of trader you are. And we're also going to touch on that next week, whether you are a day trader, a long-term trader, a short-term trader, or a scalper. So stay tuned. All right, so lastly, or I guess just before we get to the inner trend line, the outer trend line, as you can see, this is an example. You can see your long-term trend line is to the bottom, but right above that, you have the outer trend line. So as the market started to pick up the pace with buying and selling, you now have an outer trend line that represents that movement. And you can see every time it came close to that line, about 4 times, it came close and it changed direction, it went back up. So it's really important to learn about trend lines and how to draw them properly, because they really help you with your trades. This is what actually made me a successful trader. I started off just using trend lines and eventually combined that with candlestick formations, and that was how I became successful. So inner trend lines. The inner trend line is the trend line that shows the most recent extension. So once again, remember that pull back and push forward? So it's when it's the most recent push forward as the market is moving up in an uptrend or down in a downtrend. It is drawn on the shortest time frame and follows the break of a counter trend line. So this is why the counter trend line is so important. Please stay tuned so you can see what that counter trend line is all about. So this is what an inner trend line looks like. And this example, I'm a day trader, so my inner trend lines are usually drawn on an hour time frame. So my long-term trend lines, usually the monthly, and the outer trend lines, usually the daily. But again, as we practice, you guys will get your groove, what works for you. So the counter trend line. The counter trend line shows the development of the retracement. So again, that's the pullback. It is expected to be broken the quickest because again, when a counter trend line breaks, this is what shows us when we move forward so we can trade. When it breaks, it is an indication that the extension is about to begin. So that push forward. This is where you would either select the buy or sell button. So that's where you want to get in for a trade when that counter trend line breaks. So that's what a counter trend line looks like. So if the inner trend line has been broken, then you would have the counter trend line that you would draw. And sometimes that counter trend line actually develops into an even longer pullback that goes towards the outer trend line. And you're going to learn more about that tonight as well. So how to trade using trend lines. This is the most important part of it. There are 3 ways amongst many that you can use, so 3 ideal ways that you can use trend lines to trade. Number 1, buying or selling after the counter trend line has broken, which is one thing that we spoke about. Buying or selling after the outer trend line has been broken, which you guys are going to learn about. And that you may have heard, it's called a sweet spot, but we're going to touch on that in just a moment. And number 3, entering a trade when a candlestick formation appears near the trend line. Sometimes you can trade just by noticing that the candle closed near that trend line, and you'll notice that the market started to go up. But my recommendation is to look for a candlestick formation, because sometimes when the candle closes near the trend line, the next candle ends up breaking it. So you want to pay attention to what the market is telling you that it's going to do. All right, so next we have the counter trend line break. When a candle closes at least 60% beyond the counter trend line, it is an indication that the market is about to extend. You can buy in an uptrend or sell in a downtrend on the opening of the next candle. So just to show you what that looks like. So this was the counter trend line in a downward moving market. So this is a downtrend. And you can see the outer trend line that was drawn. So the candle, once it got close to that outer trend line, it started to change direction. And here we actually have a candlestick formation that is called the engulfing candle. So this is a bearish engulfing candle that formed. Once it closed, you would have been able to sell on the opening of the next candle. So you could see the next candle had already started to form, and it was moving in that downward direction. All right, so next, the second type or second way that you can trade using trend lines, you can trade an outer trend line break. So this is when the market breaks one trend line. Sorry, when the market breaks one trend line, it has an 80% chance of going to the next one. So 80% of outer trend line breaks lead to a pullback, also called retracement, that travels all the way to the long-term trend line. So if that outer trend line is drawn on a monthly time frame, you know for the next couple of months until the market gets back to the long-term trend line, you can expect, if the market is moving up, you can expect for the market to go down and continue going down until it touches or comes close to that next line. If the market is moving in a downward direction and the market breaks the outer trend line, then you can expect that downtrend line to keep moving up. Sorry, that downtrend to keep moving up until it gets to the long-term trend line. So the space between the outer trend line and the long-term trend line is referred to as the sweet spot, because it's the area where you can actually tell exactly what the market is doing. 80% of the time, once again. So the outer trend line break, when a candle closes at least 60% beyond the outer trend line, just like with the counter trend line, it is an indication that the market is about to retrace. So instead of extending and moving forward, it's pulling back. So if it's an uptrend, you can sell once that candle closes beyond the 60% of that outer trend line. And if it's in a downtrend, you can buy once the candle closes 60% above that outer trend line. All right, so this is an example of what that looks like. So to the top, you have the long-term trend line. This is a downtrend, and the outer trend line was broken. So you can see that the market is starting to travel back up to get back to that long-term trend line. So once again, that is going to take a matter of, if it's on an hourly time frame that the outer trend line has been broken, a matter of days. If it's on the weekly time frame, a matter of weeks. If it's on the monthly time frame, a matter of months or years. So you do want to pay attention to when the outer trend line has been broken. So lastly, this is the one that I use most often, which is when the market loses, which is when the candles come close to that trend line and you see a candlestick formation form and you're able to trade using that candlestick formation. So we're going to touch on that tonight, and we are looking to make a trade tonight. So the market loses momentum 80% of the time that it comes close to or touches the trend line. Candlestick formations appear as an indication that the price is about to bounce or change direction to make an extension, which again is to continue the trend. So push forward. All right, so this is what it looks like. So you have where the market came close to this inner trend line twice before it actually change direction. So first you have what is called bearish dark cloud cover. If you can see the first green and red candle that came close to the trend line, you could see after that the market ended up going down. It pulled back a little, but it went further down. So then you have the last red candle that actually touched that trend line. That candle actually formed as an engulfing candle because it's larger than the last three candles, as you can see. And again, the market started to go down. So those are 2 of the 5 types of candlestick formations, or common candlestick formations that you can use. So here is where we get to the juicy part, the practical part, the hands-on part, my favorite part. How to draw a trend line. So for an uptrend line, once again, it's really simple. Please take a screenshot of these instructions. This is how you draw a trend line or a proper trend line. So first you select the trend line tool, then select the tail of the lowest low, which is the thin line to the bottom of the candle of the lowest low. Remember what the low looks like. We're going to go through the market tonight and take a look at how to draw these trend lines. Extend the line below the candles until your mouse gets to the most recent movement. If you're not using Smart Trader, if you're using MetaTrader 4 or TradingView, you may not have that cute little red arrow that shows us when the most recent, or where the most recent movement is. So for you guys, that would be drag the arrow out below the candles until your mouse is below the most recent movement in the market, and then you pull it up, pull the trend line up until it touches the lowest tail that comes before the highest high. So that may sound a bit confusing, but this is how it's actually done. So first you select your geometric drawing tool. That's what it looks like in Smart Trader. Then the trend line. And you could see the market is moving in an overall upward direction right now. So you would look for where that upward direction began. So then that is what we call the lowest low. So from there, you're going to select the bottom of that candle, or the bottom of the tail of that candle. Then you would drag it further out until you get to right below that red arrow. If you could see it all the way on the right, the blue arrow is pointing to it. So extend the line below the candles until your mouse is below the red arrow, as you can see. And lastly, pull it up until it touches or connects to the lowest tail that comes before the highest high. So for this, you need to identify first and foremost, what is the lowest low and what is the highest high. Once you have that area, you know where you're pulling your line up to so that it can touch. I wanted us to get to the downtrend line before we actually draw this line, but I would prefer to show you guys, because once again, I'm a practical teacher. I would have loved for you guys to have the opportunity to practice this, but you are going to see how we do it. All right, so here we go. Right now you can see in this market, NZD/USD, the market is moving in an overall downward direction. And if you are familiar with Fibonacci, you can see my Fibonacci tool. This is something else that we will get to eventually once we have focused or mastered the other trading techniques or strategies. So you could see where my outer trend line was. So I'm just going to extend it. And now that it's extended, you can see that the market never actually went above that line. So this is why we say that you need more than one line, because if you take a look at it, even though this is the outer trend line, the market started to move at a faster pace and it went further down. And if you don't have a trend line drawn, it's very difficult to tell where you're going to sell. So you want to draw another line. Now, I really would have loved to have shown you guys from the very beginning where to identify the lowest low, but we're just going to go from the last point that was closest to this trend line right here. So this here, this would be your highest high. So for a downtrend, instead of it'll be the opposite of the uptrend. So instead of looking for the lowest low, you're going to look for the highest high. So I'm just going to label these so you guys can easily identify these. All right, I'll have to label it later. So for now, this here, this is the highest high. Once you've identified, the highest high. Once you've identified it, you're going to select the tool, click on the wick of that candle. I'm just going to make this a little smaller so it's easier to draw our trend line. So you can identify the highest high here. And the lowest low is actually very close to the most recent movement. So this would be your lowest low right here. So now we know that we are drawing our line in between this date and this date. So if you haven't looked at the markets before, if this is your first time looking at a chart for Forex, to the bottom you have the dates. To the side you have what we call pips, or the price of that market or currency. So we are looking at the movement of the New Zealand dollar compared to the US dollar on this chart on a 1 hour time frame. So once again, I'm a day trader, which means that I trade on the 1 hour time frame. Sometimes I'll trade on the 30-minute, but that's the lowest that I would go. So that being said, I'm going to now drag this line out to the most recent movement in the market. So you can see it's now above that red arrow, and then pull it down until it touches one of the highs that comes before this lowest low. So I'm just going to zoom in now to make sure that I didn't cross through any wicks. All right, so it looks like it's connected here. It's not exactly touching it just yet, but there was another high, which is this one. So we just need to pull it down until it touches those highs, or this one it looks like. One of the things that you will need as you are trading is patience and a good eye. So you definitely will get better at drawing your strategies and your analysis on these charts as you practice, which is why I am asking that you practice. But either way, you definitely will need patience to learn how to do it. It's not difficult at all, as you could see, because it was really just identifying a high, identifying a low, and drawing a line, and then pulling it down until it touched. So once again, I'm going to show you guys the steps so you could screenshot it if you would like. But now we have what I would consider an outer trend line. So if we wanted to draw an inner trend line, then we would pay attention to the most recent movement in the market. Now, currently the market is moving in one of those pullbacks. So that is a retracement. So it would be a counter trend line. So if we were going to draw a counter trend line, it would only be based on the last low in a downtrend, the last high in an uptrend. And again, we're going to draw it from the bottom, pull it out until it's below that red arrow, and pull it up until it touches or connects to one of the candles without breaking any of them. That's before the most recent movement in this case. All right, so now we know that once this counter trend line is broken, we can expect for the market to start moving down again. And you can also see that there's a lot of space in between this line here, which I would consider an outer trend line, and this counter trend. So we need to draw another trend line that's going to bring it closer to the most recent movement in the market, or to the speed that the market is now at. So once you've drawn your first trend line, it makes it so much easier to draw the rest, because then you know you're just moving either from the last point that touched the line or the last point that came closest to your trend line. All right, so I'm going to draw this one from the last point that touched the line. So once again, you select the wick, you drag it out until it touches. Oh, and one of the tricks that you guys are going to see me using is you can drag on the date to get to the most recent movement, or you can drag on the pips or price in order to make your candles taller or shorter. All right, so now we're going to drag it out until it's above the most recent movement in the market and pull it down until it connects to one of the highs without crossing through any of the other candles. So there we go. Now it's closer. Last but not least, we want to try to see if we can gauge where the most recent movement in the market is. So we pull it out to the most recent movement. We identify the lowest low, which is right here, the highest high, which would be the last point that touched the line, and pull it down until it connects to one of the highs that comes before the lowest low. So not the most recent movement, but the lowest low. We could see that this trend line was broken, and as you could see, that is why that market is now going up. So this is the sweet spot that we spoke about. In between this trend line and this trend line, we can expect for the market to go up. So once it reaches here, don't expect for the market to keep going up. We need to watch as it gets closer to this line to see whether a candlestick formation forms or whether the market continues to break. So if there's another candle that forms at least 60% above that line, then we know that the market is continuing up until it gets here. Once it gets close to this line, we see whether it forms a candlestick formation to show us that it's going back down, or whether it closes 60% above this line, and then we know that we'll be buying it until it gets up here. So trend lines are very easy to use and very fun to draw as well, and very reliable. So now we have our counter trend line, and now that we see that the market is going to be going up until it gets to this point, now we could use this as an opportunity to buy inside of this market. I never recommend long-term buys inside of a downtrend. I never recommend long-term sells inside of an uptrend. Because it's a downtrend, it will eventually start going back down. This is only a temporary pullback in the opposite direction. Temporary, meaning short. So don't look to go for the full hog. We know after it gets to this point, we are expecting a candlestick formation for it to go down or for the candle to break over 60%. That being said, enough talking. We can now set a trade. Based on it's 8:50 p.m. By 9 p.m., this candle looks like it's going to close in the green. I don't ever recommend that you do what I am about to do. In that, looking at this, I could see that this looks like a bullish engulfing candle, which is a type of candlestick formation that we would have covered. We refreshed on candlestick formations last week, but we would have covered that last year. So if you want to see the in-depth explanation of it, go to the one from last year. But if you want to get just a touch up on it, the one from last week. So that being said, because I want to make sure that we enter a trade tonight before this live closes or before this live ends, even though the hour is not yet up, I'm going to set a trade with you guys. Again, this is my demo account. I always use my demo account for trainings. So guys, please use a demo account as you are practicing this. You don't want to risk your real money while you are learning. Otherwise, it would be considered gambling. So you need to practice first. You need to get to know what you're doing. You need to master your trading. Good evening, Scott Stirrup. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. So Let's do it. The first thing that we are going to do, please guys, do not do what I am about to do. I'm clicking on buy so that we could set this trade tonight. My recommendation is really to start to look at what it is that you would be risking before you enter, so you know whether it's a worthy trade to enter. But again, this is only for example purposes. And then you're looking at how much you're risking versus how much you're looking to gain. So what I appreciate about Smart Trader is they have this cute little measuring tool. And since we are using candlestick formations to set this trade, then we are looking to go 10 pips below the lowest point in this candlestick formation, which it's only one candle. So it's 10 pips. There we go. 10 pips. So our stop loss, to find all of your trades, just go to this little arrow in the center there. This is our trade. And what I appreciate about the measuring tool is it actually stays there and shows you the numbers so that you could type all of this in. So for practice purposes, please write down these numbers. I'm going to give you your stop loss for tonight. I'm going to give you your take profit for tonight for your demo accounts, only for practice. You need to practice before you start trading with real money. Okay, that being said, under where it says SL, that stands for stop loss, we're going to click there and you'll notice that this box opens up. So where it says stop, it's turned on. That means stop loss. So we are going to type in the number to the bottom, 0.65312. And you could see that Smart Trader automatically calculated how much I'll be risking versus how much I would be gaining once I actually put in the amount. So there's two ways that you can set your take profit based off of your stop loss. So you can either, where it says limit, this is your take profit. You can either multiply the amount of pips by 2 from here, where it says 23.5. And that would be, let's see, 47 pips. So we could write in 47 and it'll automatically, as you could see, fill in the price for us. Now this here, the pips and the take profit that it's showing is actually compared to the most recent movement in the market, instead of with, as you can see with the stop loss, it's based on where you would have entered that trade. So that being said, I always recommend using the measuring tool instead of just typing in the pips, but it's up to you how you do it. So I'm going to click on OK, and now you can see the stop loss has automatically been put in for us, as well as the take profit. So always multiply the amount that you're risking by 2 for your profit. You want to look to gain twice the amount that you are risking, and never risk more than you are willing to lose or more than your account can take losing. This, once again, is actually a market that is moving in a downtrend. The only reason that we are trading this for practice purposes is to practice trading when an outer trend line breaks. So now we know the market should be moving further up here, as well as we got a candlestick formation that showed us. So if you want to see how to get your actual profit, then you would take the measuring tool. We've already gotten that we are risking 23.5 pips. So we're going to measure from our entry point above to 47 pips. And as you could see, our take profit is just a little off. So it's 0.66030. So now we can manually drag up our take profit until it's there, or we can click below TP and type in 0.66030. Once you select OK, it will automatically change. So once again, just so you guys can get those numbers, I'm going to type it in the chat. So once again, this is for practice purposes. The stop loss from our trade for tonight based on this trade is 0.65312, and the take profit is 0.66030. So click on sell as soon as possible so that you can benefit from this trade. Once again, on a demo account, please. I stress, on a demo account. All right. So now you guys see how to draw the trend lines, as well as how you would use it to enter a trade. So I always combine trend lines and candlestick formations for when I'm entering a trade. You guys may see these lines to the bottom of my screen. This is what you call a stochastic oscillator. As you can see, it's right there. I also use this for my trading strategy, but that's my personal strategy. So you guys will learn more about those EMAs and a number of different things as we go onward. So take this as your opportunity to learn. Take this as your opportunity to see how you can invest. And you guys can see the price is already going up and I'm already in the green. So what a scalper would usually do, a scalper is a person that trades on a very, very short time frame. So a scalper might wait for the pips to go to about 5 pips. They look to trade for as little pips as possible, and then they close their trade. So that way they know if they go on a 5-minute time frame, then they can enter, make a profit, exit. A day trader like me, I'm a very busy person, which means I don't have the time to sit and watch the market. So what I do, when I get up in the morning, I set my trade, I set my stop loss and my take profit, and most of the time I win about an average of 6 to 8 of my trades. So again, when you're looking to gain twice as much as you're risking, it covers all of your losses. I am not going to lie to you and say you won't have a loss at all, because even in business, you're going to have a loss at some point. So the important thing is to know that you are looking to gain more than you lose, which means that you are looking to, if you can win 7 out of 10 of your trades, that would be good. If you can win 8 out of 10 of your trades, that would be good. But it is very unlikely that anyone would win 10 out of 10 of their trades. However, I will say this. I did meet a gentleman that actually had an average of winning 10 out of 10 of his trades. So as you get better, then you're going to learn how to read these markets more efficiently. All right, so now it's 9 o'clock. This is actually where I would recommend that you guys would have entered, simply because we now know that this is actually a bullish engulfing candle. We could see this is the perfect time to enter for a buy as the market is moving upward towards the other trend line. All right. So now that we've seen how to draw a downtrend line, we're going to switch to another market to look for an uptrend line. All right, so GBPAUD is one of the markets that moves very, very quickly. And when I say quickly, I mean any of these candles on a 1-hour time frame can actually represent 100 pips worth of movement. So this candle, for example, is an entire 34 pips worth of movement. This candle is 75, almost 100 pips worth of movement. And all of that is just in 1 hour. So the reason why it's important to pay attention to how many pips the market moves is because based on which broker you sign up with, they give you a certain amount of leverage. Just to quickly and easily explain what that is, it's the amount of money that you make per pip. So pips, once again, that's the price on the side here. So when that 2 changes, that's actually 1 pip worth of movement. So now the market went up by 1 pip when it changed to 3. And that happens very quickly. So we need to make sure that for practice purposes, we always have our lot sizes at 0.01 for practice. Then you would be able to identify where to enter and where to exit. All right, so that being said, let's look at how we would draw trend lines inside of this market. So guys, you can let me know, would you agree that this looks like a market that is moving in an overall upward direction? As you could see, is it making higher highs and higher lows, or is it making lower lows and lower highs? If you join late, let me know. You may not know what a low is. You may not know what a high is. I can simply explain it, as well as I could show you the example from before. All right, so Alfonso Bo says an uptrend. All right, awesome. Anyone else want to comment before I confirm or deny? Right, higher highs. You've got it, Alfonso. All right, awesome. So yes, the market is currently moving in an upward trend because it's making higher highs and higher lows. So what we need to do is go on a larger time frame, because you could see that this trend began quite a bit. Yes, observation complete. You've got it, an uptrend. So you could see that this trend was developing for quite some time. So we need to go on a larger time frame just to make sure that we could get as much of those candles as possible within our trend. So we are going to go to the 1-day time frame and see if that shows us where it began. And on the 1-day time frame, it's actually still showing us more development of when it started to go up. So now we're going to go on the 1-month time frame. All right, so from the 1-month time frame, you can see where this market actually began first for GBPAUD and where the market currently is. So we can identify the lowest low, which is right here, and the highest high, which is right here. Well, based on this time period here, in between these two. So if we were to draw a trend line from here, it's important to know that, again, you're paying attention to the highest high for where you're drawing that trend line. So the trend line would actually be from here, lowest low. You select the lowest low, drag out to the most recent movement in the market, and pull it up until it touches one of the highs that comes before the highest high. So that would be, drag it up until it touches one of the lows that comes before the highest high. So that, again, would have been in between here. And as you could see, this trend line was broken. So that means that the market started to go down. So we could reverse it. So moving it from the highest high to, we need to now identify the lowest low from here, which was this point right here. So you would pull it down until it connects to one of the candles or lows that comes before the lowest low. So we could see, again, this trend line was broken. So now it's moving in an uptrend. So now this would be the lowest low. And once we connect our line, drag it out to the most recent movement in the market and pull it up until it touches one of the lows that comes before the highest high. So in this case, that would be this point. So I'm just going to drag this up so that we could better depict the movement in the market. And you could see now that the line is not touching, so we could still pull it up some more. And you just want it to touch. You just want it to connect. So now we could see this right here. This would be your long-term trend line. So now you could see how to draw a trend line from the very beginning. So can you guys let me know which trend line would come after the long-term trend line? I'll give you the names. So there's four types of trend lines. But for an uptrend, it would be the long-term trend line, the outer trend line, and the inner trend line. Before we get to the most recent movement to show if there is a counter trend line. So what would be our next trend line? Would it be the outer trend line, inner trend line, since we already have the long term, or the counter trend line? All right, so Alfonso says counter. Would anyone else like to give it a, okay, observation complete says inner trend line. Just before I actually give the answer, would anyone else like to try? Is it the outer trend line, the inner trend line, or the counter trend line that we'll be drawing next? All right, so for the sake of time, I will take both of your answers. So observation complete, you were the closest thus far, simply because the counter trend line you would draw closer to the most recent movement in the market. So for me, I'm a day trader once again. That means I trade on the 1 hour and 30-minute time frames most often. So the counter trend line for me would be on 1 hour or 30-minute. So from this 1 month time frame, as you could see, the market would have picked up its pace, and that means that you need to draw another line that's closer to that movement. So that would be an outer trend line. Observation complete. You were very close. So great job, guys. I'm so proud of you. Thank you also for responding. It shows that you're listening. It shows that you're paying attention. So that is awesome. I'm really looking forward. Alfonso, please let me know if you are inside of the WhatsApp group. Observation complete. Please let me know if you are inside of the WhatsApp group. If not, then let me know so that I can add you. Private message me on Facebook Messenger or message me at 437-4326 so that I could actually add you. Both of you, that is. So that being said, we are now going to draw our next trend line, which would be the outer trend line. So we're going to go from the last point to touch the line, drag it out to the most recent movement, and pull it up until it touches one of the lows that comes before, once again, the highest high. So the most recent movement is actually lower than the highest high. So that means that this outer trend line was broken. All right, awesome. So great to see observation complete is in the group. That's beautiful. You and the rest of us that are inside of the WhatsApp group, we are going to be starting this week. I will tell you what our goal is as well for the pips in just a moment. Alfonso, looking forward to your message so that I can add you and you can become a part of the group as well. And if anyone is watching this after the live, feel free to also send me a message so that I can add you too. All right, so that being said, we can see that this line has been broken. So now we're just going to move it to, in this case, we do need to ensure that the market is not moving in a counter trend. So Alfonso, this would have been where you would draw the counter trend line. Only if the outer trend line has been broken, then you want to draw a counter trend line to see if the market is continuing that retracement or downward movement so that it would develop into a downward trend. So as we could see, this is the highest point. This would have been the lowest point from this high. And in connecting it to the next high, that would have been this, but that broke the line as well. So last but not least, we are going to drag our line down again. Now, you don't have to move the entire line like I am. You can actually just drag on the dot and bring it to where it needs to go to. So I'm going to zoom in so we can see this a little better and drag it up so we can see our candles a little better as well. Please do practice inside of Smart Trader once again, because that is how You learn things that you won't even realize that you needed to ask or think about. So put in the practice and you get the rewards. All right. That being said, this would have been the lowest low from our last point, and this would be our highest high. We dragged it out to the most recent movement in the market and pulled it up. So now we have to pull it up until it connects. And there we go. So now this, if we were trading on the 1 month time frame, this is what we would call an inner trend line. And this would have shown the most recent movement. These two actually formed a bearish, sorry, not bearish, a bullish piercing line, as well as a bit of an engulfing candle. So this would have been an indication that the market is going up. So on the monthly time frame, we have a candlestick formation. This tells us that the market is moving up. On the monthly time frame, we have our long-term trend line. That's an upward trend line, and we can see that the market is going up. We have even an inner trend line on the monthly time frame, which is telling us that the market is going up. So we know now that this market is actually moving in an uptrend, and we would be looking to buy. So that being said, let's move to a smaller time frame until we get to the one we want to trade on, and make sure to adjust our lines accordingly. So as you go to smaller time frames, you want to move gradually, like I did from the 1 month to 1 week, because if you switch all the way from 1 week to, let's say, 4 hours, you will notice the line has gone really far, and it's actually not even connecting really to any of the candles. So you need to make sure that that gradual movement, you readjust it on there, because otherwise you have this happening. So first it wasn't touching any of the candles, now it's actually going through candles. It's important to pay attention to all of that. So that being said, all right, give me 1 second, guys. It looks like my display decided to not work with me anymore. So just give me 1 second. But let me know, is this helping thus far? Do you guys feel like you've learned anything? Do you like what you're learning? Do you like the trend lines? Is this an easy concept to get? What do you guys think? Feel free to let me know, communicate with me. I am always looking for ways to improve. So your feedback helps me to be a better teacher. What do you guys think? All right, so Alfonso says, good thus far, using the fingers. I can't do that time because that's actually associated with, PLP. And I am currently repping Coalition. So, but good. And at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter the political affiliation once our people are empowered. Because truth be told, that's why I started teaching people how to trade. And that's why I started it as a profession. I never really thought I would get into politics, to be honest. I was very surprised when I did. But if we want a better country, then we have to fight for it. So that's why I stepped forward with the Coalition of Independence instead of joining PLP or FNM, because we have seen the corruption that has happened for too long, far too long. Regardless of the people that are in there, there is a system that you have to bow to if you are in any of those parties. So as an independent, yes, you can achieve it, but doing it on your own makes it more difficult. Doing it together, there's always strength in numbers, which is why we are forming a party with the Coalition of Independence, so that we could have structure, strength, and stability. Really looking forward to building this country with you guys, regardless of your political affiliation. And definitely as well, really looking forward to the empowerment that is going to come forward from each and every one of us. Because again, if each one teaches 10, then guess what? If there's 5 persons that initially learned, each one teaches 10, that's 50 people. If those 50 people teach 10 more, that's 500 people. If those 500 people teach 10 more, then that's 5,000 people. And it keeps going on and on and on until eventually you have everyone that is empowered. So you shouldn't have to rely on open hands. You shouldn't have to rely on any one person. We want you to be able to provide for yourself. We want you to be able to pursue your dreams and not just survive, but thrive. So that's really why I'm doing this. I want to see our people grow. If I was empowered by actually, Lincoln was the person to introduce me to Forex, and that's how I started. But if he was able to empower me, then I'm looking forward to empowering others. All right, so I am still trying to connect to my display. It is being very stubborn. So pray, guys. Let's hope we can get this back up, because I want to set some other trades with you guys. And I guess while we are waiting for the display, we could touch on some of the other things for tonight that we mentioned. So first and foremost, yes, I totally agree. Observation complete. Together is better and more moves can be made. So Alfonso Bo, I see you using, I love the language, overstand. I actually use that sometimes as well. So awesome sauce. Awesome sauce. All right, that being said, since the display is taking its dare time, let's get to the pip goals for this week. So in regards to the pip goals, we are looking to make, it's extremely small because you guys could see from the one trade that we had set tonight for our practice, we could make this, but it is so that we can practice. So our first week pip goals for this month, sorry, technically February, because February is coming up, January is ending now, but our first week of pip goals is going to be 50 pips. So we are going to start off with 50 pips to make by the end of, well, by Friday. The market closes Friday at 5 p.m. It opens Sunday at 5 p.m., which is why I prefer to host the sessions on Sunday. So yes, 50 pips. So if we could make that our goal, I would love to see you guys practicing using your trend lines, using your counter trend lines, and that's 50 pips profit. So not just 50 pips that you made in one trade. You have to account for the losses as well, because we want for you guys to get to the point, or I want for you guys to get to the point where you can become a full-time trader just like I was. I'm now a business owner or entrepreneur. Because I became a full-time trader, I didn't have to work for anyone else. I was able to look at what my dreams are, what I wanted to accomplish, and I want the same for you guys. So let's start to get to the point where we can do this, even if, again, like me, I'm busy as heck. But I set my trades early in the morning, and in the evening, I am able to see the green. So, and green being whenever your pips are in profit, it's in green. So that being said, I want the same for you guys. Please let me know if you are able to commit to this. I don't want to put this on you guys and then, you know, you end up telling me that you can't do it. I don't want to add any pressure to you, but I do definitely want to ask you to please practice as much as possible, because that is how you improve. So let me know if that 50 pips goal works for you, and if you are willing to accept the challenge. All right, observation complete. I see you saying you want to become full-time because you have some projects to build. Awesome sauce. Lot size. I do recommend 0.01 for now. For now, we're not looking at the dollar value. We're actually looking at the pip value, because the pip value shows us whether you are improving or whether you need more practice. So that being said, the lot size for this week would be 0.01. So that's the lowest that you can go with any kind of account that you have with any broker. So 0.01. Okay. Now, if you have more experience with trading, if this is not your first time trading, feel free to do what works for you. But this is really just for those that are practicing and getting into this for the first time. What I want to recommend that we focus on is the improvement of the skill rather than the dollar value, because that is what would actually help you to become a full-time currency trader or to make some extra dollars on the side. All right, now, great news, guys. The display is back up. So we have our weekly pip goals, we have our lot size, and we have our first trade. So let's see. All right, so now I'm going to go back to the weekly time frame so I could readjust the trend line. All right, so now we have our long-term trend line to the bottom. We have our outer trend line just above that. All right, and it still looks like it's connected to me. I'm now realizing you guys can't see what I'm seeing. Let me know if you can see it now. I will wait for you guys to put it in the comment. Can you see my screen? Can you guys? Okay. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Alfonso, for letting me know that you can see it. Okay, thank you. Observation complete as well. All right, so now we are going to get into, let's see. All right, so it looks like it's touching to me. Let me know what you guys think. It looks like it's touching this candle here to me. Okay, on second look, it looks like it's not touching just yet. So I'm just going to pull it up a little bit closer. And now I'm going to switch to the daily time frame. All right, so on the daily time frame, the line is close to the candle, but it's not touching it. So I'm just going to readjust it to make sure that it does touch it. As well as I'm going to bring this line a little closer to the candles, because you'd be surprised when you get to that 1 hour time frame, that will look like it's a mile long. So you want to make sure that it is as close to the most recent movement in the market as possible, so that you can adjust your line as you may need to. All right, so it looks like it is touching, and we're just going to check the beginning of our line as well. Okay, so the beginning, it looks like it's going through just a little. And one of the tricks with the trend line is if you extend it just a little bit beyond that first candle that you wanted to connect to, it helps with being able to tell exactly where the line is. So you don't have to necessarily put the gray square directly on the candle or a circle based on what platform you're using. I do recommend having just a little bit of line behind it so you can easily adjust it. All right, so now we're going to go to the 4 hour time frame. All right, we can still see our outer trend line, which is very good. And it looks like it went through. So we are going to need to adjust that. Okay. I don't know if it's just my internet, but it looks like a couple of times it's almost freezing a little. Let me know if you guys are seeing the same thing. All right. Okay, so it looks like it's close to the line. It may need to go up just a little bit so it could touch it. And then we could go to the 1 hour time frame. So this is why I say it's going to take some patience, because you do need to confirm that it is working as it is supposed to. But once you practice and once you get it, you've got it for life. So I'm going to go to the 8 hour time frame because I'm noticing that the market picked up speed, and we want to have a trend line that again is closer to the market so that we can follow it and see where it is likely to go down to, bounce, go up, so we know where to enter for a buy or where to enter for a sell. Now, sometimes if you don't allow for the entire market to load, like just a moment ago, it'll look like it's crossing through a candle. So you do need to go to the beginning of the line just to make sure everything is correct. All right, so it's touching, it's not crossing through, it's perfect. Now we could go from the last point that touched the line. We can identify the highest point from the last point that touched the line, which in this case is actually closer to the most recent movement. So now we're going to grab our trend line again. And okay. We're going to go from the last point that touched the line, drag it out to the most recent movement in the market, and pull it up until it touches one of the lows that comes before the highest high. All right, there we go. Now we just need to make sure that it is actually at the beginning, which it looks like it is. All right, so we are almost all the way to the most recent movement. We're going to go to the 4 hour time frame, and make sure that our line is on point, which it looks like it is. And key tip, for the inner trend line, it does not necessarily have to start from the last point that touched the line. It just needs to be from the last low. So that would be from here, really. You could go from here if you would want, because the bottom of this candle is very close to the bottom of the green candle. So you essentially have a line that's pointing all the way out there. And if you want it to be closer to the most recent movement, that may be a bit cumbersome. So you could also go from the second low. All right, but just before we get there, yeah, I think we could just do that. So again, the lowest point would be from here, and the highest point would be from here, based on, again, the inner trend line. So once again, we want to select from our low, drag out to the most recent movement, pull it up until it touches one of the lows that comes before the highest high. So in this case, it looks like whether you would have drawn it from, sorry, I'm just readjusting my line now to make sure that it's actually touching the beginning. All right. So it looks like whether you would have drawn it from the second low, and again, a low is the candle that is lower than the two candles on the left and the two candles on the right. So you can see it a little better now, but it looks like whether you drew it from the second low or the last low, that line would have been all the way out here. So, all right, it looks like the market is retracing, so it's probably going to try to get back to this line, which means that this is not a market that we can necessarily look to trade just yet. Please, even though you can trade retracements when the market breaks an outer trend line, please do not try to trade retracements when the market breaks an inner trend line or before the market even gets to the inner trend line. So please give it a chance, because with these, as you could see, from here to here, you couldn't tell that it would have stopped here and gone up, which means that you could have ended up losing a trade if you had set that trade there. But for me, I like to see a bit more candles, so we're going to go to the 1 hour time frame. And once again, I'm a day trader, so this is the time frame that I trade on. It looks like our candles are straight, and it also looks like, because we have more development of the candles, we can draw maybe another line that is closer to the most recent movement. All right, so I'm gonna go from here. The highest point, once again, is right here. So now we're gonna drag the line up until it touches one of the lows. All right, so it looks like this trend line was broken, which is why now the market is moving down and it's trying to get here. I'm just going to measure the pips to see whether this is worth actually trading. But again, this was an inner trend line that was broken. I don't recommend trading inner trend lines unless you are a scalper. Then you could trade inner trend line breaks on a 1 hour time frame and go to either a 5-minute time frame or something to that effect. Then you would be able to really benefit from that trade, because you know for about the next hour that candle should be going down on the 1 hour time frame, so you could benefit from that as a scalper. But if you're not a scalper, please do not trade outer trend line breaks. Sorry, not outer, inner trend line breaks. Please. I really want to see you guys succeed. I am begging you, please. All right. So now we just need to draw the counter trend line. And let me just measure the distance. Oh, wow. Right, so remember when I said that with GBPAUD, you can get hundreds of pips inside of one candle? Well, the amount of pips between where the price currently is and this trend line is 202.8 pips. So please definitely be careful which markets that you choose. Make sure that for beginners, I would recommend choosing a market that is not as volatile as GBPAUD. But at the same time, if you want to practice and you're using your demo account, it still gives you the perfect amount of practice to know how you would trade it if you were trading on a real account. So I definitely recommend GBPAUD as one of your currency pairs. So these are the 5 currency pairs that I love to trade: NZD/USD, USD/JPY, AUD/USD, GBPAUD, and GBPUSD. You will notice that with each of them, I don't only have USD. So with this pair, this actually is a pair that does not have US dollar in it. The reason why is because you need to have a pair that doesn't have USD in it. So for example, when the 4th of July comes up and they're closed for the day, when Christmas comes up and they're closed, when Thanksgiving comes up and they're closed, you still want to be able to set a trade. You don't want to risk it where the market is closed and then suddenly it opens and it's at a completely different price and you're risking. So it's not worth it. Please be sure that you also identify other currency pairs that don't have the same as what you have. So you'll notice I have GBP. I have about 2 GBP or Great British Pound pairs. I have 4 USD pairs because, of course, the US dollar is actually the currency that backs all other currencies at this moment in time. We've had talks of, because the US dollar was falling so much, the Chinese yen is something that they were looking to back currencies by, but there was no official conversations on it as yet, or at least not to my knowledge. You can see I have AUD, I have 2 AUD pairs, I have 1 NZD pair, and I have 1 JPY pair. So JPY is a really good currency pair is a really good currency to have in any one of your pairs. And the reason why is because it's one of those volatile currencies. And when I say volatile, I mean the Japanese yen, because they are an industrial country, they manufacture cars, they manufacture laptops, computers, phones, TVs, a number of different things. So there's all kinds of industries that they are currently invested in. And because of that, they have to make sure that the value of their yen is really low. So their bank is constantly buying or selling their yen in order to keep it within a certain value. So that's their central bank specifically. So that's the job of central banks, to keep the currency between or within a certain value. So that being said, Japanese yen is a really, really good currency pair to trade. I definitely recommend that you have it. USD, I recommend that you have it because, again, it's the currency that backs all other currencies. Whatever happens to that affects everything else. So definitely have at least 1 USD pair. This is why US dollar pairs are called major pairs, because it is that currency that's backing everything else. Great British Pound is another really, really good one to have. The Australian dollar, if it's compared to volatile currencies like the Great British Pound or the US dollar, it's a good pair to trade as well, because again, it's going to give you that 200 something pips per day, that 500 something pips per day. So it's something that's worth it, but just make sure that when you're trading the Australian dollar, you have the heart for it, because it's the currency is constantly fluctuating. If you take a look at this, we started off in the red. Now, if you look to the bottom, we have essentially $4.20 worth of profit. So, and that was just from a trade that we set just a moment ago, just a couple of minutes ago. So again, in this market, the currencies are constantly changing value. You want to make sure that you develop patience, you develop self-control, and you learn not to let your emotions cause you to suddenly exit a trade that would have gotten you into the hundreds of dollars. You don't want to watch it the entire time unless you're a scalper, because you're looking for when you get to that 5 pips so you can exit. You don't want to really focus on it too much, because again, if you sit there all day and you stare at the numbers, you will end up getting stressed. It's going to go in the red at some point. It's going to go in the green at some point. You set it, you walk away, you let it do what it does if you're a day trader or if you're a long-term trader. But if you're a scalper, I don't recommend, if you're a scalper, then yes, you could sit down in front and you could watch it, and once it gets to 5 pips, you know you're out of that trade. But please do not allow for your emotions to trade you. Let you trade your emotions or control your emotions. Don't let your emotions control you. So all of that being said, some of the things you need to know as a currency trader, some of the things that they don't necessarily teach in schools, but that you develop as you, or that you learn as you develop your trading strategy and your routine and everything. So please, 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 guys, make sure that you pay attention to self-control and patience. All right. That being said, we have, if you maybe missed where we entered the trade, you can still take advantage of it since it's only 5 pips above right now. So you can still enter, but once you see it gets to 10 pips and above, I don't recommend it, simply because we are looking to get 50 pips, essentially 47. So if it's 30, that's only 17 pips in profit more, and you want to look to get twice as much as you're risking, not risk more than you're looking to get. So that being said, if you haven't entered this yet, the stop loss is 0.65312. The currency pair is NZD AUD, and the take profit is 0.66030. Feel free to take a snapshot of it so you can type it into whether it is MetaTrader 4, TradingView, etc. So you could take a benefit. So you could also benefit from this practice trade. Please make sure you use your demo account when you're doing it. Take a screenshot. It's also inside of the chat. Look for where I would have typed in the take profit and the stop loss. That is what you would be using. All right, so you guys got to see how you draw an uptrend, a downtrend, how to draw a counter trend line, where to enter, where to exit, how to use your trend lines, as well as combining it with candlestick formations. I'll teach you guys about the Stochastic Oscillator another time. We'll get to indicators once we have completed the strategies. So indicators, it's not like a robot necessarily, but it's when the computer uses formulas in order to read the market. So the market has patterns that you can read, and you'll find that most news actually helps to fulfill whatever patterns you draw, but please pay attention to the news. I'm not going to go over it tonight, but I will give you guys the name of the website that I use to keep up to date with it. You can actually turn on the notification. It's FX Street. And there you go. So you'll notice right here, they will tell you what's going on with the market. AUD, USD, both accumulating markup could be on the cards. So they're telling you, could be means this hasn't happened as yet. So they're telling you it's likely that the market is going to go up. You can get some of your trades just by going to FX Street and following their recommendations. These are persons that have been in this business for as long as, well, I don't really have the date of when they started this, but they have been doing this for a very long time. I have been trading from 2019, and I've been using FX Street from then. So that's at least, what, 4 years now? Maybe 3? 3 years? Yeah, 3 years. So I definitely recommend that you use it. Take advantage of it. If you go to specifically news, you can go to Forex news or even a specific currency pair. Please identify, again, 3 currency pairs tonight that you want to trade. I did make recommendations based on what I usually trade. Take the opportunity, please. Take advantage of it and see what's going on. Anything that has to do with crude oil is going to affect the Canadian dollar. If you are trading a Canadian dollar pair, you want to pay attention to when the oil is hit. Certain commodities, certain stocks, certain industries actually affects currencies directly. So with the Canadian dollar, crude oil is one of those things. So this is some information that you want to pay attention to, as well as you could see it's involving Russia. So you can pay attention to, I believe they call their currency krone, but I might be saying it wrong. Feel free to look it up as well. I don't trade the Russian pair simply because it's not one of those usual currency pairs that you find in the Forex market. So I tend to stay away from the exotic pairs. And there you go, just like that. News came out. So every time that the news comes out, or every time that an announcement is made about more news, FX Street will show it for you, and they will show you what you can expect to happen. So NZD USD price analysis, defies nearby bearish channel to aim for 0 point. So defies and bearish, those are two words that you want to pay attention to. Once you learn the language, you can better trade. So it's ignoring the bearish indication that it would have had before. So that means that it's going up. You could look to sell, to buy NZD/USD. So you can use the news to actually affect which pairs you pay attention to. So you can see NZD/USD is actually the one that we are trading, and the news is supporting our analysis. So it defies nearby bearish channel. And look at that. We are actually in that trade. So the news helps. Please pay attention to it. Please use it. We'll even talk about another type of trading where traders just use the news to see what they're going to trade and when they're going to trade, how they're going to trade, etc. So take advantage of it. All right, so I think that we really covered a lot tonight. I want to thank you guys so much for staying on with me for what looks like almost 2 hours now. You guys are awesome. Really appreciate you. It was great having a conversation with each of you tonight. And I really look forward to, I guess, getting to know each of you, because I'm looking to add all of you to the group, whoever wants to be added, so that we could start trading together. And now that we would have covered trend lines, this is basically the fundamentals of my entire trading style. So trend lines really, really helps. I started off just using trend lines, combined trend lines with candlestick formations, then combined it with Fibonacci, which you're going to learn about not next week, but probably the week after. And sure enough, my trading actually went through the roof. So definitely recommend that you guys take advantage of this. Thank you all once again for tuning on tonight. Really, really looking forward to building this empire with you guys. I really look forward to hearing about your testimonies and what kind of things that you get into. I want to know, what is your why? I want to know, what is your story? Feel free to reach out to me. Once again, my phone number is 437-4326. So you can reach me once again at 437-4326. Give me a call. That is how you reach me quickly. Like I said, I'm busy. I'm a very busy person. I don't know how it happens. It just does. Of course, we are really busy with the Coalition of Independence and establishing it and everything. But apart from that, I've just really always found a way to end up getting busy in life, because I really want to make a difference, and I love helping people. People are my passion. God is my passion. And when God has really changed your life, when God has really impacted your life, you can't help but want to help someone else. You can't help but want to see someone else transform. You can't help but want to see someone else grow. So as a result, I end up trying to find ways that I can help people. So please understand, if I don't pick up, it's not because I'm ignoring you. It might just be that I'm in a meeting. It might just be that we are doing something for Coalition of Independence. I also have businesses, plural. So I might be in a business meeting. But either way, give me a call. I want to hear from you. I want to learn more about you. I love connecting with people. So let me know what your project is. Let me know what you want to do. It was great speaking with you. Alfonso J. Sweeting, I see you. Really great to have you on with us. And thank you so much. I totally agree. COI will be the next one. So observation complete. I'm so sorry that I don't yet know your name, but I do know that I can narrow it down to about 20 people based on who's inside of the group. So I will find your name and I will message you tonight. Thank you so much for being so interactive tonight. Alfonso, please send me your number so I can add you to the group, so that we can start trading together. Sal Smith, it was great to have you on with us. Scott Stirrup, it was great to have you on with us. So thank you all so much for coming tonight. Thank you for joining. Thank you for being a part of this. Oh, wow, Alfonso, you use a word I use as well. Alfonso said awesomeness. That's something I say all the time too. So thank you all so much. And with that being said, let's have a prayer. Feel free to ask any questions. After the prayer, if I see any questions, I'll answer it. Feel free to message me, 437-4326. Send me your number, send me your name if you want to be added to the group. If you have any other questions, if you want to connect about anything else, feel free to give me a call. Feel free to send me a message. Have a good night, everyone. Let's pray. Father, we thank you so much for this opportunity where we got to grow more together. Thank you that you are uniting your people. Thank you that you are using us so that we can help others and so that others can become who they were meant to be. We ask that you would use each of us as your coffee beans, that we would turn the rest of the water into coffee, Lord. Use us to influence others so that we can help them to become better. Father, influence us, please, so that we can become better, because no one is ever at their best. So please continue to guide us, show us the way, help us to do what it is that you have called us to do, and let us not get distracted. Yes, we can get busy, and I know I'm really, really guilty of this, Abba. But help us to always stay grounded in you. Help us to always stay focused on you and stay focused on the mission that is ahead. Show us just your plans, because again, in your word, you said, you know the plans that you have for us, plans to prosper us and not to harm us, but to give us a hope in the future. I thank you for using me tonight. I thank you for relating everything that was given tonight. And I ask, Lord, that you would take the seeds, plant it, and multiply it, let it grow, let it flourish, let it become an entire field full of fruit trees, Lord, that will then plant seeds and grow up to plant more vineyards and more gardens and more farms, Lord. Just let your will be done. Please continue to be our everything, because without you, again, we are nothing. Thank you. And in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Have a good night.